Welcome to the Fit Rich Life podcast, a show where we talk about money, entrepreneurship, financial independence, health and fitness, and designing a life you absolutely love. In today's special guest episode, I get to interview Jay Money from Budgets Are Sexy. Jay Money is an award-winning personal finance blogger, curator, consultant, and daddy of 3 wild boys. With over 15 years of building communities online, Jay's projects have reached over 40 million views and are regularly featured in the media. An avid coin collector, skateboarder, and yoga enthusiast, Jay loves connecting the online world with the real world. Jay Money has been featured in Forbes, Business Insider, the New York Times, and in many other high-profile publications. In this episode, here are some things you'll learn about. 1, Jay Money's entrepreneurial journey. 2, making money as a blogger. 3, who should and should not get into blogging. 4, buying and selling blogs. 5, financial independence. 6, building businesses to support your ideal lifestyle, and a whole lot more. This is a great show for anyone interested in blogging, building businesses online, and financial independence. This wisdom will empower you on your own money journey. Please enjoy a wide-ranging conversation with Jay Money. Jay Money, welcome to the show, brother.
Hi, thanks for having me, man. It's cool. Although I am jealous that your hair is better than mine right now, I have to admit.
I don't know. Yours is so much easier to do than mine. Like, I have to have my wife do my hair.
Yeah, I could do mine with the mirror. It takes me like 4 minutes and hairspray and some twists, and I'm good. And I could shave the sides. I'm good, man.
Boom. Yeah, see, I'll shave most of the side up until the hairline, like where my longer hair is, because I'm too scared to like cut divots into it.
Yeah.
So like I'll do most of the work and then I have my wife do the rest.
Okay. That's smart because I definitely have some chunks missing. So
yeah. Well, what I've noticed is my mohawk keeps getting like a little bit higher and higher, like every like year or so. Yeah. It's just like slowly inching up, like higher and higher up on my head. So
that's cool.
Well, thanks again for coming on the show. Just to give the audience a little bit of background. So I discovered financial independence at the end of 2017. And I kind of dived into, all the financial independence blogs and podcasts. And I discovered Jay back when he still did a podcast with Paula Pant, and he was writing on Budgets Are Sexy and as well as Rockstar Finance. And I absolutely loved his personality, his attitude, his high vibe energy. And I just wanted to have him on the show to talk about his money journey, his entrepreneurial journey, and his financial independence journey. So Jay, if you're cool, let's like rewind back to kind of like when you first got into this whole like personal finance thing, financial independence, blogging. Like, take us back to kind of like how you got into all of it.
Man, we got to go back to 2007, 16 years ago now. My wife and I, or my fiance and I at the time, were looking for places to rent. And somehow we stumbled across a place for sale. Somehow we bought it within basically 48 hours without really like knowing exactly what we're doing. And everyone's like, oh, when you're adult, you should buy a house. And that's like the next thing to do. And I come from a military kind of background. So I'm used to moving around, and my personality usually doesn't do well sitting still. But again, that's the thing you're supposed to do. We ended up buying, no money down. This is right before, obviously, the crisis right around the corner. I think the next year happened. We bought, and I said, oh, well, I better pay attention to my money more. And I just Googled like budgeting or something. And I kept coming across all these articles that were just from like normal people. And they're like, here's how I save and here's my net worth. And I was like, what? Like, people just like put this stuff, like I was blown away. I've never seen anyone's money like ever, like people talk about in general. And then I started like learning, and then I saw there's this whole community of people talking about money freely and mostly without judgment. And I got hooked and I started learning. And then after a few months, I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll just start a blog. I didn't even know what a blog was, and I didn't know you could really make money or it would go on to change my life. I just kind of did it for a fun, trying to be more productive. productive hobby. And I started, and what I realized was that a lot of people liked reading just normal stories from like a normal person. Like I have no degree in finance. I have no, like, I was just talking about money, and I talk about beer and going out and coffee and just like stuff that I think a lot of sites like don't really talk about. And then, I had sexy in my name, and like my limited marketing experience was like, well, sexy, like everyone likes when there's sex in there, like that'll get me millions of followers, like actually probably turned out the opposite. Like it gets banned on like employees website, like people that can't go to it at work, like companies won't advertise with me sometimes. So like, I'm sure it did more harm than good. But it got started, and I thought budgets like kind of gives you confidence, and sexy is confidence. So that's kind of like what I tied together there, at least what I was trying to do. And it was when Justin Timberlake's "I'm Bringing Sexy Back" was hitting the raves. I was like, oh yeah, all right, we're good now. We're going. So I started, and after a few months, it just started getting lots of traffic, and then had like my first advertiser. And I was like, oh, this is great. Like, I'm doing this for free, and you're going to give me like $50 to like put an ad in the sidebar. Like, all right, that's cool. And then eventually I just started taking off, but I had a full-time job. And I remember one time my wife was like, you're burning out. You're doing like too much. And I was like, well, I can't like stop the blog. It's like, it's growing and it's like so much fun in the community. And I was like, all right, well, maybe I should, give my 2 weeks notice, which is really hard. And I walked into the office and I actually got fired. Laid off, like they laid off like half the company, and I was like, wow, like that, like it was meant to be, and I became a full-time blogger right at that point, and that was 2010, I feel like, or 2011, so a couple years after starting the blog. And then we just been going, from there. I've grown. I've done other blogs, sold them, or they failed, I shut them down. I sold my main blog a couple years ago. I bought it back. Crazy journey. So, but yeah, that's how I got started in the space.
What kind of work were you doing, like for a 9 to 5, at the beginning of your blogging journey?
I was working for startups. Actually you remember, when cell phones first came out and like you can like pay for like a ringtone or like a fancy wallpaper.
Oh yeah.
Like we were a company that like did that. And I didn't even know, like going to college, like I just assumed in growing up that you just have 9 to 5 jobs. Like I didn't even know about startups or like I remember applying to this job off Craigslist, and they're like, yeah, we're a small, like 4 or 5 person company. And I was like, 4 or 5 people? Like I don't, and I'd go in and it was just like a few of us in a room. And I'm like, this isn't like a job. Like I felt so strange. I just had no context, and then I realized like everything was started by like one person or group of people, like computers and chips, like everything, if you look around your whole room, everything was started by one person making a company. And I finally realized, oh, okay, entrepreneurship. And, so I kind of call myself an accidental entrepreneur. Like I started something for a hobby and it accidentally became a business, and I had to learn and figure it out,
Yeah. So I'm curious, kind of like going back to like the beginning of like Budgets Are Sexy and Rockstar Finance. Like how did you actually make money from like blogging?
Yeah. So, advertising, the display ads, annoying ads that you see on people's sites, that was way more, it's still, popular today, but back then I think it was a little more so. Affiliate links was the number one thing. So if I'm like, oh, I love, Coca-Cola, and you blog about it and there's a link to Coca-Cola and you buy from Coca-Cola, then I get like a commission, affiliate link. And some of these stuff like that one gets kind of tricky because you can promote stuff that pays you well. And actually, here's a perfect example, right? I should have done, I don't know why I picked Coca-Cola. That's a stupid example. Like credit cards, right? Like back in the day, if you promoted a credit card and someone signed up to your link, like some companies would pay 50, 200, like even there was a month where people paid you $500 every time you got someone to sign up for a credit card. So as you can imagine, a lot of people started sharing it. The problem is if you're like anti-debt, anti-credit card, or like it just goes against your morals or whatever, like you have to start playing this game. Like, when is the money and the business growth? Like, does it naturally fit? Why am I doing this? And for me, I've always been in it, A, as a hobby, and then B, to help people with money. And it's just kind of fun, And so I would promote the stuff that I personally use, but then I stopped doing the stuff that paid more, that I wish I could do, but I just couldn't. So like, that's kind of going off tangent here, but affiliate links is a big way to make money. And that's one of the ways I did it with display ads. Sponsored content every now and then. If it was like a company I used and they wanted to do something sponsored with me, I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. That's a perfect match. And then, yeah, that's basically it. A lot of people in our space write books or come out with their own products, and that's huge. Speaking gigs, or some people I know that don't make anything off their blog. They just use it as a resume, and then they get paid $5,000-$10,000 a pop to speak, and then some people want to like publish a book. So really, like, once, it's like your personal brand. Once you're out there, you can then, take whatever opportunities you want and go down that path and leverage, your audience and your traffic and your, your quote influence online.
Yeah. What are your kind of like, I know you do a lot of blog coaching.
Yeah.
For people, and have, over your kind of blogging career, like, who should start a blog and who should not start a blog?
Yeah. The second one's easy. If you're trying to make money, like, just don't start a blog. Like, it is really hard. And even now, like, I've been doing it for 15 years. And even when I bought my blog back, like, it's way harder to make money now than it was when I started. But not even that, like, if you're going to spend, 20, 30 hours a week on a thing, like, you can make money faster doing so many more things than a blog. Like, a blog is a commitment, and it's time, and it's marketing, and it's writing, and it's growing. It's like this whole thing if you're trying to make it successful, and I'll be honest, like, if someone wants to hire me to coach and I say, like, why are you blogging? And they say, I want to make money. I just say, I'm not the one for you,
Yeah.
But if you're like interested in the topic, and if you make money, that's great also. But like, you're fine. You're just writing because like you're passionate about whatever you're writing about. Like, that's perfect. That's the sweet spot. Because it is like, it takes so much time. You have to really enjoy it. And usually with anything in life, right? If you're enjoying it and spending time on it, it's going to grow naturally. And then you're going to have opportunities, whether it's money or it's, to leverage it for something else that you want to do. So that's the big question that I ask people usually.
Yeah, I think that's really important to note, because unfortunately, I think a lot of people go after careers, jobs, side hobbies, side hustles, etc., purely for money.
Mm-hmm.
But like, chasing money takes like a lot of willpower, and I feel like willpower is a finite resource. Whereas if you're doing something because it's personally fun for you, like, fun taps into spirit, and spirit is like an infinitely renewable resource. So you can just like keep going on it, and because you're like enjoying doing it. You know what I mean? Like, if you like enjoy creating like a body of work online that is of service to other people, like, you'll stick with it over the months, years, or, in your case, like, I don't know,
over
15, 20 years you've been doing it. Yeah.
A third of my life. Yeah. No, that's true. I've never heard someone say it that way, but you're right. Like, it is. You only have so much energy in a day and time. And I'll say I'm all for like doing things just for money if it like makes sense. I actually have this thing, I call it, what do I call it? The triad of hustling. There's like 3 things with hustling, and it has to meet at least 2 of the 3. Like, it has to either be like, doesn't take too much time, has to make a lot of money, or it has to be a lot of fun. Like, if you only hit one of those, like, it's usually not worth it. Like, but if you hit 2 of the 3, you're good. If you're having fun and it doesn't take much time, like, oh, that's great. If it's making a lot of money and it doesn't take much time, that's great. Like, just 2 of the 3, and 3 out of 3 is like, that's like perfect. Oh, can you hear my little boy in the background?
I can.
Yeah. You can edit it out or keep it, whatever you want.
I don't care. Like, my favorite podcasts are like when you like, the more authentic and raw and real they are.
Yeah.
Like, if you hear the leaf blower outside, it's like, yeah, this is what happens when you're podcasting. So you mentioned kind of at the opening that like you grew up kind of moving a lot, and you like bought this house within like 48 hours. So
Yeah.
did you end up unwinding yourself from that home?
Yeah, I did. We finally wanted to move, and we were so like underwater because of it, everything crashed like right after that when we bought. So I think we were like negative like $80,000, whatever equity. And so we didn't really have an option, but we wanted to move, so we decided to just rent it out. So we became like accidental landlords, I call it. And we had a property management company do all the work. And for me, like, I don't know, I'm very like free. Like I want to be open and just like, I don't like a lot of responsibilities and a lot of like attachments. Like I'm more minimalist as I get older. And like the house, like even we had a property manager and that did everything, but it was still like just the idea that you get this phone call that something's broke or it's just out there. And that's why for real estate with me, talking about Paula Pant, like she loves real estate. It's a great way to build wealth. And I agree, but I don't think that's for everyone. Like you need a certain type of personality to know you have all these physical things out into the world, At any rate, eventually after a few years, we sold it. I literally had to come to the table with like, I think $15,000 or $20,000 just to get rid of the house, and then we rented for years. I don't know, 5 or 6 years. Eventually we decided to settle, so I'm not moving around a lot and I still wanted to rent, but other people in life, you have to be considerate of, and we now own again. But it's interesting, like this time it's not as scary or annoying as it was the first time. I think financially we're well better off. I think back then our net worth is maybe $25,000 or $50,000. And like anything that broke was like a big deal, now that we're more, close or if probably financially free, like well over $1 million. Like now if something breaks, I just like, call someone and it's annoying and it stings for the day, but the next day, like I forget about it, and the kids like feel like they have a home and, so like there's definitely benefits, but still, if you gave me the choice, I would still pick renting. That's more naturally fits me.
Yeah, I get that. I'm kind of in that, situation that you were in where like my wife really wants to buy a home.
Okay.
And I could be wrong. I could be misreading this. Like your wife, I'm guessing it was your wife who wanted to buy a home. I could be wrong.
Yeah, you're right.
And no judgment. Like I get it. I think there's, and I don't want to sound like I know everything at all, but I think, oftentimes, a woman in a partnership, they kind of like feel this urge to like nesting, like, oh, like we're gonna like put our roots down so we can like build a family and have a place. And just the idea of renting when you're like building a family doesn't feel very like stable. Maybe.
Yeah. There's merit to that.
So was it around like was it during when you had children that the kind of the impetus to like finally settle down happened? I'm just kind of curious. Like,
no, we've already had 2, or actually no, we have 3 boys right now, 5, 9, and 11. And I think we had all of them, and the third one was maybe a baby when we decided to buy. No, I think it was just because we finally decided where we're going to be for the long haul. And then we only had like a month and a half window to find a place. I think I misread the situation. I thought we would just keep renting or look until we find the one home and then we buy. And so then I was like, all right, I'm cool with that because it has to be like the one, right? And if it's the one, then okay. But then after like a few weeks, I realized that was not the case. And we had to buy one. And then I thought, oh man, then that's where it really like was hard for me. I would have been fine buying if we spent more time, but we didn't. And so at any rate, but we were moving where I wanted to move. And so like, that was like number one, right? Like just the thought that like, she was okay with it and it's not where she was comfortable with. That was like a big win for me. And so I wasn't gonna, cause too much trouble. And so, we moved and we're still, And I'll say this too, like I debated the whole, do you pay the house off? Do you invest? And I still go back and forth, but I sold the blog and I had an influx of cash. And I thought, you know what, maybe it'll feel different if I like pay it off, and that does. And then we did, that's what we ended up doing. And so that feels kind of different too, living in a house that you don't have a mortgage payment, versus when you do. So that helps. Still, sometimes I just want to take it all out. I want to sell it and then rent and have that pile of cash just because it feels good, but,
Yeah.
Maybe one day when the kids are out of the house, I don't know, maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah. 3 boys is a lot. I grew up in a 3-boy family as
Okay.
well. And I just I still feel for my mom, because 3 boys is so much.
It's chaos. Yeah. As you know. Yeah.
So, tell me about kind of what was the reason behind, after you started Budgets Are Sexy,
Yeah.
Rockstar Finance came after that, right?
Yeah, that happened, I think 5 or 6 years later. The thing with Rockstar, so as once you jump into something, you start reading and consuming all of this information on a topic. And I thought, and curation wasn't really a big thing back then. And I thought, well, maybe since I'm consuming all this stuff, maybe I'll just pick out my favorite things and I would just share them on one site. So every day you go to Rockstar Finance or you get the email, and it was like, hey, I skimmed or read 150 different articles or podcasts or videos, whatever. Here are my favorite things I think that you'd like. And then you could just go. So in theory, I was like curating for everyone. Here's what it is, and I just thought that could be a cool job in the future when I'm no longer blogging and tired of writing. I can go and do that because I'm still in the community. I'm still helping. And over the years, it eventually, I got a little jaded because I started seeing what everyone was doing. And it was at the time when start a blog, make money, was proliferating and probably still is. And then I started seeing the blogs not really be blogs. They were all trying to be businesses, and they were writing very robotically for Google and for search. And I was like, oh, I mean, I even saw blogs come out. The very first blog post of a brand new blog, here's how you make money blogging. And I was like, mother effer, this. Oh, I was so irritated, because it's not and so eventually I got really sick of blogs and cause I go through 100. I think at one time we were tracking 1,500 blogs all around the world. I tried every blog I could find. I wanted to track, and every day during the week, it was 250 to 300 articles every day, brand new, being published around the world in personal finance blogging space. That's a lot. On the weekends, it was a little less.
Yeah.
But I just saw everything, and 95% of it was all the same or garbage or just so boring. And then I had to find the top, percentage. And then it made me write more because then I knew what was out there. And so anyways, but I started just to share, have a curation site. And I didn't realize that the best thing about curation is that all you're doing is promoting the crap out of other people. I'd put my own blog in every now and then if I thought it was really good, but it was mostly other people. And then I didn't realize, because you're promoting other people, they all, we all love, to share when we're being popular. So then everyone shares back the site. So it was this cool circle of love. I share everyone else, they share back, and it just naturally grew. And so it was kind of it was cool to be featured on Rockstar because you get a ton of traffic for 1 or 2 days until the next, then every day it swaps out with new people. So that was one of my favorite projects just because it shared so much love. And then my connections grew because then I knew everyone in the space, and I would love it. If a new blogger, would publish a really good article the first time, if it was a great article, and usually the new bloggers are the best because they're not thinking business and they're just writing out their heart, and that's what you want to see. And so I'd share that, and then they'd get a massive amount of traffic to help jumpstart their blog, so it was really cool. It was a really good passion project. I never am really good at doing the business stuff to make money and to grow it, SEO stuff and kind of this marketing stuff you kind of have to do. I always did enough in all my projects online just to have the dream lifestyle. I just want to go up and write and have fun and make enough money to pay the bills, but I don't need to make millions of dollars, And so that was always my test. And when I was done with it, with both of the sites, that was the challenge. How do you sell something that you're wrapped in that doesn't make a ton of money, but there's so much value there. There's a community, there's commenters, there's people sharing, but how does that translate into money for like a business, And so I always had a longer time finding the right buyer that understood it and was willing to pay what I thought that was worth, versus like, oh, this is just a turnkey blog. Anyone can come in and make XYZ money. And then you do a multiplier kind of thing, if that makes sense. It's been interesting.
Yeah. When did you sell Rockstar Finance?
I think it was around 2017 or 2018. I want to say.
Okay.
I had it for 3 or 4 years and then I sold it.
Yeah, I feel like I remember when I first discovered FI, I discovered Rockstar Finance. And I was like, oh, this is so good because it's like all the best content. Because I was like,
you don't have to
I feel like it, yeah, well, it's like when you first discover like FI, if it clicks, you're like, I want to consume everything.
Yeah.
And I remember just going to Rockstar Finance like every day. But then I feel like probably after you sell it, it kind of like fell off.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So like,
right.
Help me understand, like if you don't mind sharing, like after you sold it, kind of like what happened to it.
Yeah. So I will say anytime the original person sells anything, usually, and maybe not in normal business, but online business, and especially blogging when your personality is infused, like I've never seen a blog or a site get better. Like it always either stays even or eventually goes down, or it implodes, and usually it implodes, just because it's just different, And so in this chance, I was trying to find someone that would keep it long term and like just again make sure the culture was right. And I found a guy, John. He still blogs at esimoney.com, and he's an OG blogger that had freemoneyfinance.com, which is one of the very first I ever read. So he was always OG. And some of our talks, I guess shouldn't say details because it didn't turn out. I just thought something a little different would happen. But overall, I think too, the way he curated, from what I understood, like I was going to stay on and help him, but our personalities, like it was like, well, let's just break free and like make it clean. So he can make all the decisions and just run it. And I kind of stop looking at it. It's hard to see something after you sell it. And so, but yeah, from what I hear, the curation changed a little bit. Like he didn't focus on like, I think all bloggers. I think it turned into just a smaller portion of blogs maybe. And then he was a businessman, like he bought it for a business. And so, he had to find ways to, make money off of it. And he did. He was way more successfully financially with the site than I was. Now again, but right, going back to it, right? Like we had different, like motivations, I guess. So a lot of people thought it was better run when it was mine, but it wasn't making money, right? They didn't think that, but he was accomplishing his mission, And so again, like, and when you make these financial decisions, right? Like maybe the way he curated, maybe that made more money for somehow, right? I don't know. I mean, in theory, you could say, hey, pay me money and I'll put it in the curation and give you traffic. I don't think he did that, but like, these are like the things you have to question, like, oh, how much do I want to make money and how much will that affect? It's like a mind, thing. But at any rate, he eventually sold it as well after a year. And that's the thing with blogs and companies. Like you always think about the one person you're selling to, but you don't necessarily think like what happens after that. So you have to be okay with whatever happens once it's gone. Like, and I've seen sites like with traffic that like literally redirect to porn sites. They're just like, nope, or do like payday loans or like something that you're against. And so when you sell something, you have to realize like they can do whatever they want. You might be pissed off at it. And are you okay with that? So you have to be able to detach. At any rate, he sold it to another person, and that person, after a few months, I think like just went offline. And I think the site's still now, it's like some weird, like minimal template. It's like old articles, but it's still live. You can still see some stuff. But, and from what I understand there is I think someone bought it, had intentions to grow it, and then got like sidetracked with another project. And so never did, but they still own it. And I've tried to, buy it back at times, but like it didn't go anywhere. So yeah.
Yeah. I actually remember that now that you brought up ESI Money, because I remember kind of like following the whole journey of kind of the transfer of the ownership. And I think for a time, like it stayed pretty good, and then it kind of like petered out.
Okay.
But I just remember thinking that was so awesome, that like, what, like you can sell a website, like,
yeah, dude,
like, and
yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, like when I started blogging, I didn't know, like, again, anything. And I had a friend, have you ever heard of Dinks Finance, DINKS, dual income, no kids, finance.com?
yeah.
Okay. That was one of the OG blogs too that I read, James, and he happened to be in DC when I was in DC. And he had to move, like overseas for a job or something. And he was like, hey, can you help me sell my blog? And I was like, you can't sell a blog. Like, that's not like a thing. He's like, no, dude, like he was very business. He's like, no, it's a business. It has income and expenses and cash flow. So it's a business. And I was like, it's not a business. At any rate, I come and find it. Yeah, it's definitely a business, right? Like technically anything that makes money. But he kept wanting me to help him sell it. And I was like, no, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I think he wanted, I don't know, $10,000 or $20,000 or something. And then one day he's like, look, man, like, I like you. Like, I know you'll do a good job. Like, just give me like $5,000 or $6,000 for it. Like, make me feel good. I'm going to go do this thing. And I was like, all right. And that one decision, like, probably like was like the biggest financial decision in blogging I ever made, because I didn't realize, I mean, which makes sense. It's like real estate, right? Like now I have 2 properties. And whenever I get an advertiser in one, I just cross promote the other. Like, hey, advertise across both, and I'll give you, I'll give you a discount, 10% off, 20% off or something. And then it like expanded my network, right? And then all of a sudden I had like 2 properties, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Like, what if I go around and I say, hey, when you're done with your blog, I'll buy it from you, right? And people are like, yeah, okay. Or people started coming to me. And so at one point and this is what really helped me stay as an online entrepreneur. Because again, budgets are sexy. I think at the time I was only making maybe like $2,000 a month, because I wasn't focusing on the money. I was focusing on the content and stuff. But then I was like, oh, I had these other blogs. I started buying up blogs. And at one point I had like 12 or 13 blogs. And I was just managing them. I was just writing for mine, but managing all of them. And so then my cash flow went up, I don't know, $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 a month, and I could survive, And so that decision from him really opened my eyes, like, oh, you can expand and have this whole portfolio. Then I got into minimalism, and I was like working 40 hours. It felt like a job because I was just managing sites all day long, which is not fun, but it made money. And so then I eventually sold it off, became more minimalist, and went back to like budgets are sexy only. And I think that's right around where I started Rockstar Finance. Like you have one thing that's successful, and you're like, oh, I'm going to do all this other stuff. And then you're like, oh, whittle it back down just to the successful, and then you kind of go back and forth like that. But a funny story with James is he later bought it back for me when he moved back into the States. And he still runs it to this day, and I felt bad. I was like, well, I can't sell it to you for what I bought, because like now it's making a lot more money, He's like, no, I'm a businessman. Like, it's pure business. I totally get it. I'm like, oh, great. So like our friendship is still exactly the same, but he just got it because it was business, So yeah, crazy story.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you illustrated that like building websites is really like creating like online properties, in a sense. And I'm kind of like mine to you. Like, I thought about getting into real estate. Like, I have one property, but it's not like, even though I could probably make a ton more money going into like physical real estate, I just have no interest in managing a bunch of properties.
Yeah. That's good that you know that. It's good that you know that.
Yeah. Well, I thought about it many times, but I'm just like, I'd much rather like build online businesses, because that's like what's fun and exciting to me.
Yeah. And I feel like online, because I think it's like a little bit of a thrill too, because online, at any day could like take off and just be worth like millions of dollars out of nowhere. Whereas a piece of real estate, like, exactly what you're getting. Like, it's not there's no surprises here, except for like expenses, but you can build a site, and if it goes viral, then all of a sudden it's like unlimited potential for income or traffic or whatever you're going for. There is a thrill there.
Yeah. How do you actually like value, like if you're going to buy a blog or sell a blog, how do you actually value it?
So there's a lot of ways. I think just like traditional business, from what I'm told, there's like a multiplier. So whatever profit your site is making in a year, profit, not income, or income, you usually multiply it around 3 times. So if the blog's making $1,000 a year, like, all right, it's roughly, this is at least how I start. It's roughly worth $3,000 just based on finances. But then it's like, well, does it have an email list? Does it have social? Does it have a big community? Like, how is it making money? Because there are some sites, and here's a good example. Like when I started blogging, like people would pay, like when people figured out like the more links, the better for traffic, and Google like that, people would say, hey, I'll give you $100 a month to put a link in your sidebar. Right. And when I was beginning, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. So I had like all this crappy links, I didn't know anything. It was just money, but then I realized like, oh, they're gaming the system because then anyone can buy like, organic traffic, and then Google pushes you up, and then Google started finding out and they start penalizing everyone. And then I'm like, oh man, I'm going to get penalized because I have all this crappy links, and so that's like the down stuff. The solid income is affiliate income, display ad stuff. Again, if you have a product that you own and that you can just all you have to do is send traffic to and it converts, like that income is worth way more than the fly by night crappy income. Right. And so then if I'm like, oh, this blog is making is worth $3,000, but it's all crappy stuff, like I'm only going to pay like $1,000 for it. If I want to deal with that, because at any day Google can like cancel me, and then like everything dries up, and then like it's worth nothing, and so you hope to recoup your money and then more. And so some of the first blogs I bought, I was like, well, how can I send the most links everywhere? Because that's what I was doing. And then I realized, and I was like, oh man, I should focus more on like solid income, and so if that same blog had like affiliates or had its own product, and I'm like, oh, I can just push traffic, then that site's probably worth around, $5,000 or $6,000. Like it could be double. And so those are like rough things. But it also depends on why you're buying a blog. If you want to, like let's say you just want an email list. There's some people. So right now I do blog brokering because I've stopped buying and selling, but I always find out when new blogs are for sale or if my friends are going to sell. And so I just have a list. There's about 250 or 300 people on this email list I have. And anytime someone's selling it, I say, hey, I'll send it to my network of 300 people. And then if they end up buying it from you, like just give me like a commission, and so that way I could still leverage all the network, but like I can help 2 people at the same time. And so some people that are on my list, like they don't even care about the site. Like they just want an email list. If it's a huge email list on target for what they want, like they'll pay exponentially just for the email list and they'll shut down the site. Other people I know, well, they just want the content. They'll import all the content into their site or whatever portfolio they have, and then they shut it down. They just want all the content. Some people, it's like, I'm too afraid. Like, I don't want to start the blog and start from, like, I want to start with like a base. And so they're looking for a first blog that they can manage and learn from, and then grow it. Others are like, I have a team of writers, I have designers, I have everything. I just need like more real estate, and I just plug and play with my team. So everyone's looking for something else for their own portfolio and what they're good at. And so that's what they're looking for. And then, of course, then they're like, well, all I want is the email list, so I should pay less, like, and then you just play that game like, well, but it's making, this. And so, and then you negotiate. But it's an interesting because there's no rules. There's no laws. Maybe there's some laws, but, it's just people, they start something, they want to sell it. And it's cool to see what people, like how people evaluate it differently, but the 3 times is like the stuff you start at, just like a rough estimation.
Yeah. Do you have any opinions on how like AI is kind of changing blogging? I'm just curious, just because you've like been in this scene for a long time, and I'm just now that.
I don't know how to tell. Like one person, I can't remember who it was, wrote the whole blog post and title in AI, but didn't say it till the end. And I thought it was him the whole time. And so I enjoyed it. And then when I learned it was from AI, I was like, mother effer, like I didn't enjoy it as much, but it shouldn't have mattered because it was still good content, But I think he ran it through AI stuff and then he tweaked it to be his voice more. Because to me, blogging is like a personal, it's like it's like literally short for web log. Like it's like your personal diary. And it just happens to be about money. And there's, fashion bloggers and mom bloggers. There's a whole bunch of different bloggers, but it's like your personal thing. So I only enjoy the community when it's a personal thing. When you're writing to make money in a blog and just to like game the system and all that stuff, that's not enjoyable for me. And I think a lot of people use AI, like, again, like it's faster content, it's free, I could probably start a whole thing on AI, not tell anyone, and they'll never know, and it's probably true because 80% of the blogs, like I mentioned before, they're all the same, and it's all the same content. Like money there's the same rules over and over again, but it's just like how you tail it and what clicks with people. So I think AI is everywhere, probably more than I know. But as long as like I think it's coming from the person and it's personal, that's like what I just personally enjoy more,
Yeah. So I was reading up on your website, Budgets Are Sexy.
Okay.
And I noticed that you took off all the ads. You actually mentioned that you took off all
the ads. Yeah.
So why'd you do that?
There's two reasons. One, again, like I'm very minimalist and I hate like seeing ads because like it's annoying, and so that was like, let's see if we could do that. But also when I decided to buy the blog back, so I sold it like 3 or 4 years ago to the Motley Fool. And I was perfectly at peace. It was good timing. Like they were like the culture fit, like everything was perfect. And so I was at peace, never thinking about buying it back. Eventually they got out of the blog buying business. It didn't work out. And because it didn't work out and they weren't good at whatever they were trying to do, like traffic was down, money was down. And so like I bought it back like at a fraction of the price, like pennies on the dollar, like super cheap. But I bought it because I was like, like I can archive it all. My kids can, maybe they'll one day want to be bloggers, or maybe just to like show them the content, I can make sure that I can like keep it safe. And then also I had just been sick for a little bit and I was feeling better and I'm like, oh my gosh. And because the Motley Fool like got out of the blog buying business and the blog stuff in general, like I had partnered with them as part of my deal of selling the blog to build another site, another curation site for them, like Rockstar. It was called All Star Money. And they shut that down too. So I was like sick, thinking I was going to die. Like I was fired from all my stuff. I sold I had nothing to work on and I started feeling better. I was like, I have all this energy I need to pour into something. And they were, and to the Motley Fool's credit, like they could have easily packaged all the blogs up and sold it to someone. And then they could have, just rotted off and crashed and burned into debt, but they didn't. They were like, hey, this is your baby. If you want it back, here's your chance to get it back. I'm going to present it to you before we go out and sell it to everyone else. And they did not have to do that. And they probably paid, because even for them, I said, look, eventually I'm going to take down all the ads that you guys put up because I don't like them. And that's going to cut revenue down. Right. And so my negotiation was give it to me cheap because I'm eventually going to get rid of it all and just like archive it. And maybe I'll blog every now and then. And they're like, that's fine. And they didn't have to do that. Like they lost thousands of dollars, if not hundreds, because they thought it was good that I'm going, like it's going back to me versus like just some no-name corporation, So I give them a lot of credit for doing that. Like that's very unusual. So yeah, so I still, and I got into for 6 months. I was like blogging a couple times a week, and then I was like, oh, I forgot about all this like stuff, like the maintenance and I just forgot about it all because I was so excited. And so now I just like got rid of the ads. I streamlined a lot of stuff, and now I blog like once a month, there, if that.
Yeah. So question about the maintenance. So like, I got into the blogging world, I don't know, 2014, 2017.
Okay.
I forget when.
Yeah.
Because I was like originally like kind of inspired by Tim Ferriss, who had been blogging for a very long time.
Okay.
And I started with WordPress, and it was like things would always break and the site would go down.
Still does.
And then yeah. And I was like fuck this. And I just like signed up with Squarespace.
Oh, interesting.
And I've been using Squarespace for, I don't know, the last several years.
Really?
Never breaks, never goes down.
Oh, wow.
It's always working and zero maintenance.
Wow.
And so like one of my questions to you is like, like, what is the benefit of using WordPress versus like Squarespace or Wix or something like that?
I mean, I don't know. I've never questioned it, I guess, because like everyone uses WordPress, and the limited research I did was like it's optimized for SEO as best as possible. Like it automatically creates a mobile app for you, you know, like or the themes depending on what you pick. And so I like every single blogger, finance blogger, I guess until now, like uses it, you know. So I just do it because everyone's doing it. I was on Blogger, and you remember Blogger? Like I was like,
Yep.
yeah. And everyone then was like, no, WordPress. Like I was the only one on Blogger, and then Blogger shut down whatever service they had, and so I was forced to move to WordPress, and then I just stayed there. But yeah, maintenance, like plugins are breaking, or you have to renew them, or the site something happens. Yeah, and I over time I just like a good friend of mine that blogs, Steve. He's what is his site now? I think he's like Steve on Speed is his like handle, like I think on Twitter. And he's early retired. He's Steve Adcock. You might have run into him. Steve Adcock.
I feel like Steve on Speed. I remember that name, so I've probably read some of his
he's been around,
somewhere.
and he got financially free, and he kind of just plays like, here's how to get rich, and here's how to like get fired. Like just pours out content and on purpose does it in a way where people get mad, but then it like drives his traffic even higher. And he's like, I don't care. Like I'm just gonna. This is what works online, you know, that kind of thing. But anyways, he's a tech guy, and so I just anytime something breaks, I just pay him to fix it, and he hooks me up, and I don't have to worry about it anymore because I just have a tech guy, you know. Yeah. But that's cool. I mean, I've heard of Squarespace and definitely Wix. I think a lot of the places, at least whenever I see them, there's always like dashboards and ads, and it looks like unprofessional. It doesn't look like you own it. It looks like they own your stuff. So I guess maybe like, I don't know if your site does it look just like normal, like it's your site and you own it, or
it looks like it's not the best looking blog, but it's like it look like you don't see anything like you'd never guess that it's a Squarespace blog.
Okay. Yeah.
And like I just pay like I don't know 100 something a year, and it just like everything works.
Yeah,
it's been so easy for me. Like the way I kind of like talk about it is like you know how like an iPhone is so easy to use,
Mm-hmm.
like nothing breaks, it's always working. But like then like back in the day, like I used to have a PC, and like stuff was always like breaking and like the PC wasn't working and stuff. And so when I switched over to Squarespace, I was like, this is like using like a Mac or an iPhone. It's so easy. It never breaks. It looks beautiful on desktop and mobile. And it's just like really easy to publish. Now, I don't know if it's optimized for SEO, but like me, I personally don't care. Cause like, I'm not creating content necessarily to like become the wealthiest blogger. I'm creating content because I like to create an online body of work. And it's kind of like a space where I can like republish my newsletter into a blog. So it's like always available online. I can have my podcast, all my podcasts there. And it's kind of like, it's, you know, kind of like similar to jmoney.biz where you have kind of everything about you all in one place.
Like
and that's kind of what it's been for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, and I will say for too, if people like, because when I was buying blogs, a lot of people would say like, I still want to write, I just don't want to deal with like everything else, you know. And that was always perfect because I'm like, all right, well, I'll buy the blog, I'll do all the other stuff, and then I'll pay you, you know, a salary or per post to keep writing as if nothing's changed. And that was always the perfect transition because the audience still gets what they want, the person gets what they want, a chunk of money, and then get paid every time they write, you know, because most bloggers, you don't get paid to write, you get paid through other, you know, ways, or unless you do freelance stuff. And so, and now, and back then, like Substack wasn't around, Medium wasn't around. And
I was just going to mention like Substack, like if you want to just write, Substack is great. You can even like charge a subscription.
That's so cool.
And for the record, I'm not sponsored by Squarespace like at all.
You need affiliates, and now
I know I need to hit them up after the show and be like, hey, give me an affiliate so I can plug you at the end and be like, use my code.
At least pay for your yearly services once for you, give you something there.
That's true. Just give me free Squarespace for the rest of my life.
That'd be perfect. That's a perfect partnership. Yeah.
And I just like, because, I'm a coach as well. And like similar to you, I don't necessarily help people with like blogging. I'm more focused on fitness and money,
Okay.
but like within the realm of money, a lot of people like, oh, I want to start, a website to highlight my coaching business or
Perfect.
whatever. And I'm always like, use Squarespace because it never breaks.
Yeah.
And like, because I almost gave up on blogging with WordPress because I was
Wow.
like when my site was down, I worked so hard to get an article out, and then I'd be like, "What the fuck? My site is down,"
Oh
and
gosh.
and then I'd spend like an hour or three trying to figure out why the fuck it was broken,
Yeah.
and I was just like, then I was spending more energy trying to keep the site up
Oh.
versus creating content, and so that's why I just like gave up and transitioned to
So does
Squarespace.
Squarespace do the hosting? Because WordPress,
It does.
okay, because there's different versions of WordPress. Like the one I use, you just use the free software of WordPress, but then you pay hosting elsewhere. So like some crappy
Correct.
like Bluehost like is always down, so you just don't connect it there. You connect it to like and Bluehost. Going back to
It's
the
so
affiliate game, there's people
that's what I was just going to say.
there's people in our space that
There's
make 150,000 a month in cash from Bluehost, and it's
yeah.
crap.
Yeah, that's so funny you say that. I love how raw and real you are because like I remember when I was first getting into like writing online and a blogging, everyone was promoting
Yes.
Bluehost and I was like, dude, this shit does not work
Yeah.
most of
And
the
they're getting
time.
paid a
Like
lot of
this
money
drives me
to
crazy.
talk about it. And some of them aren't even on Bluehost. They're like using
Yeah.
Squarespace.
That's hilarious. Yeah, and uh, that brings me back to kind of what you're saying like just like being authentic in your business because I think in the short run you make less money
Yeah.
potentially, but in the long run, like you're proud of the work that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. And even like when I sold, I mean, I don't know if this sounds funny or not. When I sold budgets, I was like, oh my gosh, like this was like the best career move I ever made. And I had so many friends from it. And like my brain is different now, like my money, my, like everything. And it's like, do I lose, like what happens when I'm gone? Like when I sold, am I not relevant anymore? Do I not have anything? Even when I sold, I said, I need to keep my Twitter because like that's my only connection. And it's like literally at Budgets Are Sexy. It's like branded site. And Motley Fool was like, yeah, you can have it. We don't care. And I was like, this is awesome. So I felt connected. But back to your point,
Mm,
like whenever I thought like, oh, I'm going to do another project, I realized I can just use, the energy and the connections I have. I can promote it so easily. And I have like on J Money, I have my own personal newsletter for that very reason. So I
yeah.
can always tell people when I'm doing something. And so back to your point, like had I like done a lot of these stupid things for money early on, they wouldn't be following me like a decade later. And if I come up with something, they're like, no, I'm not going to follow that. Like you're going to promote some other crap, over here. And so it's nice that you always have, and that's why I tell if you have a project that you're going to thinking about selling in the future, like find a way to capture your emails or your audience somewhere else so you can always talk to them and pitch new stuff that you're doing like when you're gone from the business. Don't let everything go with the business and then you start from scratch. And that's why
Mm,
online stuff is so good and social media, like, and everyone's like an influencer now, but it's like your personal brand. And I remember
yep.
no one had like their name.com, like your name, like it was always like Budgets Are Sexy or the money blog, and then over time I saw everyone branding their names and themselves, and
Yep.
I'm like, oh, that's so crazy, but like it's like you, and it stays with you forever. And even like some projects I shut down, I'm like, I could always use that experience, and like that, like your experience never dies even if you don't do anything ever again. Like you had that experience and you could always talk about it like in interviews. And like I had this project called Love Drop. It was a charity. I mean, it was 2010, so 14 years ago. And to this day, like some people ask me on podcasts or just email me about that. I'm like, oh, it's so crazy because to me it's long gone, but like it's still out there. Like the memory lives on, until
Yeah.
it doesn't. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's why I love like having an online presence and I kind of think of it like a multi-dimensional online presence. So like whatever social media platforms you actually enjoy using,
mhm,
like get the same name across all of them.
yeah,
And then like you can just placehold on the platforms that you don't actually enjoy. Like,
Yeah.
my website is fitrich.life.com, but I own justindavidcarl.com, and it just forwards to that website.
Perfect.
Cause I was like of the mind, like, hey, one day I may outgrow the Fit Rich Life brand.
Yeah.
And like, you know what I mean? So I kind of co-brand my name with Fit Rich Life. So if I ever kind of like, I don't know, sell it or decide like, hey, that's not who I am anymore.
Yeah.
Then I've kind of like, so I own Justin David Carl, like on
That's
Twitter,
perfect.
Instagram, etc. And anytime something new comes out, like I own it on TikTok, but like I don't do TikTok because that like
It's a whole other thing.
I just like to me it's like I just don't want to create on that platform, not because I think it's an incredible platform to grow, but it's like I'm already like doing Instagram. I'm already
Yeah.
doing like a website. It's like, I always tell people like, pick the platform that you actually enjoy creating on
Yeah.
and like stick with that one. And then at some point you can kind of like start to repurpose your content for all
Yeah. I agree.
things. But like in the beginning, just focus on one. Like I noticed like
Yeah.
you just focused on
Yeah.
Twitter and your blog.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. Similar to you, I had an Instagram. I had some other things out there, and I'll repurpose every now and then, but yeah, no, that's good. Yeah. And the thing you focus on the most, yeah, because if you scatter across, like you'll just be like mediocre, but when you focus on one, like you can grow it and like it just, and people could tell that you care and you communicate. A lot of people push all their content all the time and they never communicate with anyone. And like for me,
Yeah.
it's like, it's literally called social media. You're supposed to be like a social, like that to me is the whole point.
Yeah.
Even though, and that's the funny, like with blogging, right? And I'm not complaining because like it changed my life, but like they weren't meant for like businesses. Like they're meant for like socializing and talking and sharing, but like they're just like, oh, if you can make money, like now we'll share and make money, and I do it and everyone does it. But it's just funny. Like it's not meant for all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, and that's how I got it. Like I'm slowly doing more on Twitter
Okay.
/X.
Yeah.
But like I reached out to you via Twitter because
Yeah.
I was like, okay, maybe he'll check his DMs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then I can get you on the show. And so
Yeah.
for me, social media, like my predominant social media is Instagram. That's like the one I just enjoy creating the most
Okay.
on. And I've just gotten so many like incredible friendships, connections, people that have come on to my show because I've like taken the time to build myself up on that platform.
Yeah.
And then that's, helped me grow my podcast and my other businesses. And so like, I think, you and I are really of the focus of like, let's be authentically ourselves online and then use these tools to really like, create connections and create a life that we absolutely love. Like you mentioned, like kind of building a certain type of lifestyle for
Lifestyle
yourself,
business.
like
That's your
with
Tim Ferriss stuff. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like I could sell out and probably make a lot more money per year,
Mm-hmm.
but then I would be like cringing about my own shit.
Yeah.
You know
Well,
what
then
I mean?
you'll start something else. You're like, well, yeah, yeah. I mean, to me, and it's funny because I started this whole journey because I wanted to better my money, and I was younger. I was in my 20s, and I was like, oh, like being a millionaire is like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I just want to be a millionaire. Like everyone wants to be a millionaire. Like it's
Me
everyone.
too.
Yeah, yeah. But like as I went over the years, I'm like, a millionaire doesn't mean you spend millions of dollars. Like you have to save the money to like reach them, and if you spend it, you're going to be broke again. It was like not that fun, like in that thing. But like over the years, like it changed your brain because you're like saving and you're cutting back, and like you had to be more minimal. And like you reach it, and then you're like, "Oh, this is great," but like it's not as like fancy. Like, I mean, multi-million, like that's a different story, billionaires, but I don't even know where I went with that, but
Well, you actually bring me to one of the points I wanted to kind of talk about,
okay.
budgeting and net worth tracking.
Yeah.
So kind of like walk me through your thoughts on that, or even like kind of your journey. Cause I know you kind of started with budgeting
Yeah.
and like, do you even keep a budget
No,
anymore?
I
Right.
don't. I know I should be called like, yeah, don't budget anymore. No. Yeah, I did it, especially in the beginning. Like I found out like if I'm tracking where everything's going for a few months, like that really it was so easy to figure out like what's going on, like tracking every penny for a few months. And I budgeted loosely after that. Um, then when I start like I did the net worth from day one because that was a blog called mymoneyblog.com. Jonathan, who still runs the blog, he was the first blog that I saw that ever shared his money for anyone to see. He showed his savings, his debt, his investments, and every month he would send an update where he failed, where he did good. And that, like, having everything of your financial worth in one spot, like, really, like, gives you a number, right? Like, savings minus debt, and here's your net worth number, right? It doesn't really mean, like, a lot of people, it's not self-worth, it's not, but it's a good number to track, just like budgeting, right? And for me, I realized I got motivated when my net worth went up. And there's lots of ways you could do that, right? Like you could make more money, you could pay down debt. Like you had if you did anything positively financial, your increase goes up, your net worth goes up. And so for me, over the years, I just started only doing my net worth every month because that gives me a good snapshot. And once all the habits from budgeting, like, all right, I don't spend willy-nilly all the time, I don't do all these things that I used to do, like they become habit. So now I don't have to like budget, I probably still lose a few hundred a month because I'm not paying attention, but like there's like a term for that, like the cost of, of something. But that, like, the freedom that I don't have to worry about it, and I'm okay with not having a couple hundred more every month, like that's worth it to me, and that's the irony of money, right? Once you get good at it and you have it, you don't have to think about it anymore, and I think that's where a lot of people start getting themselves in trouble. They're just constantly thinking about it and they just want more and more. I know people that have millions of dollars and they're just nonstop. And I'm just like, man, what if you just like died tomorrow? Like, I don't know. Like they don't have enough, and that's sad. And there's people that have like, $10,000 and they're content, like to me, that person mentally is farther ahead than the one chasing, all the time and never being happy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I think there's like a lot of people never kind of define like what enough is.
Yeah.
And then they're on that never ending treadmill. Like they get to 1 million, they're like, okay, now I need 2 million.
Yeah.
And then they get to 2 million, they're like, now I need 10. And then they get to 10, they're like, now I need 20 or 100 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think there's not necessarily anything wrong with that if you're living a life you love, but if you hate your fucking life because all your over all consuming goal is just more and more and more, but there's no kind of like, hey, let's actually build a life like where each day, like I love what I get to do. Then like, what's the point? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and you reminded me when I went on that tangent with net worth $1 million, like I wanted the $1 million and I realized like you want money for your ideal lifestyle. Right. And we were talking about lifestyle thing. That's where the connection was. And like being able to live like however you want to live, you want to travel, you want to just like play video games all day, like whatever it is, like the ultimate goal is to do that, every day. Right. Like, and so some people need a ton of money, like the people going 10, 20 million, like they need a lot of money because they want the big house or the private jets or whatever they want or the fancy cars. And so that's what you have to do. But if you're content, like reading books, going on walks, like getting a beer every now and then, like you don't need as much money, like your net worth doesn't have to be that high, which means you don't have to work like that much longer, And for me, I realized, and this is like, I've been like technically financially free for, I don't know, a little over a year. In the beginning, I didn't know what to do. And I purposely like said, I'm not going to do any projects for 2023. Like I wasn't going to start anything because you're so used to like starting, building. I was like, I'm going to do nothing. But then I had to live with the reality of like, what do I do with myself? Especially if you're not going to build anything. And that's what, and so, I'd do the coffee shop and read books because I saw other people doing that. And I thought, oh, that looks fun. But then after a couple of weeks, you get bored. So I started volunteering. I'm fine now, but I realized like the ideal lifestyle, like in the morning, I want to work out for an hour or two, hang out with the kids, get them off to school. I want to, like do yoga or have some coffee. And then by lunchtime, like I feel like I want to do something like more productive, like whether it's a side gig or like fixing something in the house or something like that. Like I need a little productivity besides, working out
Yeah.
and besides doing nothing. And so now I'm like, okay, there's like 1 or 2 hour chunks that I just keep adding on top of each other. And that to me is like a perfect ideal, lifestyle. And before,
Yeah.
when you're working 40 hours and I was working 60, I was working nights, working weekends. And I came to this like epiphany. I read this book called Essentialism. And I was like, oh
Great
man,
book.
yeah. And so I was like, I need to like stop working nights and weekends. And so I slowly got rid of nights. Then I slowly got rid of weekends. I kept whittling it down. And I got to a perfect point where I'd work from like 6 to 12 in the morning, 6 in the morning to 12, and then play the rest of the day. And that was perfect because I did half and half. And then over time, I just got rid of the 6 and replaced it with working out. So I'm more in line with your stuff because I never worked out, never cared about that stuff. And now I'm like, I want to live longer, be around for my kids.
Yeah.
I got sick. I thought I was
Yeah.
going to die. And they were like, well, you should have been eating and drinking better. And like your back hurts, like your core is like crap, you need to work on your core. And I'm like, I don't know what any of this like, means. So I started like drinking green juice every day, like veggie juice. I was talking to you earlier about yoga. Like I'm obsessed with yoga. I've literally done over 100 classes in 3 months. I think it is 3.5 months now.
Wow.
Like I'm just like you, I just go all in, right? And now I'm doing things. I did a headstand today in class. Like I didn't even like that was not even a possibility, before. And I had someone come up to me today actually and said, hey, have you ever thought about being like a teacher, like do teaching training so you can teach classes? And I was like, holy shit, like that is like the best compliment, because I'm doing it for me and to learning, and I still have the newbie brain and I'm trying to listen and follow the rules and figure out like what you're doing, but because I'm passionate and I keep, we're social people. So I talk to everyone there, and having our hair like we are, right. People recognize us more. And so anyways, like that was only because I stopped building and I was like, how am I going to, like, what's my ideal lifestyle? Right. So like the days that I missed like a yoga or something, like I'm fine, but I'm like, oh, like it wasn't a perfect day because that, that wasn't there. At any rate, it's figuring out, like, if you want money, figure out what you're going to do with the money that makes you a happy life, right? Like whatever that is, like they have to be tied. And then, and you can, like, you don't need, like, I thought like, well, once I'm a millionaire, I could do X, Y, Z. But a lot of the X, Y, Z, or at least the X or the Y, you can do in your daily life or on the weekends or something, like even without the money, like you just got to like be conscious about it and like really prioritize,
100%. Yeah, I'm right in line with you. That's kind of why I came up with like my brand Fit Rich Life, because like before, like fitness and health to me is like, if you don't have that, it doesn't matter how much money you have. Like if you're sick, like, this, nothing matters. Nothing matters if you're not healthy, because like you can't do shit. You can't even enjoy the things like reading a book or going for a walk if you feel terrible.
That's true.
And like to me, kind of a rich life, it is living that like ideal lifestyle. Like I'm very similar to you. Like I'm unhappy if I don't do at least something productive for a few hours, like 4 days a week. So kind of like for me, my Fit Rich Life is a 4-day work week where I start work at like 10 or 11 and I usually shut down around like 3:30, 4.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And kind of I'm pretty, and so like I like to wake up early because I'm just naturally an early riser. So I have, depending on kind of when I wake up and when I start my work day, like 3 to 6 hours to just do whatever the fuck I want.
Nice.
Like read books, meditate, go work out, like go walk the beach, go walk my neighborhood. You know what I mean? And then I do some work. And then, afterwards, like after I like work for a few hours, I'm like, I don't want to do more work. So like I go kind of rejuvenate, like watch some shows, do some more reading, like, and like my reading in the beginning of the day is like personal development, business, etc. And then at the end of the day, it's like fantasy and science fiction. Let's go.
But you know that about yourself, that you need a couple hours of productivity to be happy, even if it sounds stupid, even if you don't need the money, even if you don't need anything, but you just need to feel productive, and then you're good. And it 100%. Takes a while to figure that out too. That's cool.
So I'm curious a little bit more like this kind of health journey. So like, can you share like what kind of sickness you got? Like walk me through kind of like what happened.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I just started having like blisters in my mouth. Like I remember feeling something under my tongue, and when I looked in the mirror, like you know how frogs have that little bubble thing there, you know, like well, like that was in my tongue. And I was like, what? And it kept growing in my. I was looking at it, and then it popped, and I was like, that was weird. I didn't think anything of it, and then a couple of days later, like a little miniatures ones would come, and then eventually, like just like this is gonna sound gross, like I would just be talking and like blood would like drip out of my mouth. I'm like, what is going on? And I started like I eat bananas every morning. All of a sudden, bananas were spicy, and like I couldn't eat a banana. And then eventually, over like a month, I couldn't eat as much, and my mouth was miserable. My nose and my throat all of a sudden like had lumps in them, and I couldn't swallow. Like it was hard to swallow, like when you're sick. And no one knew what was wrong with me. I'd go to doctors and, you know, look at my throat, like, no. And then one day I woke up and I couldn't swallow my own saliva. Like my saliva stayed at the top, and and I don't really go to the ER that much and stuff, but I was like, I need to go, right? Like I can't swallow. I'm going to die if I can't like swallow my own saliva and choke on it, you know? And interestingly, like at the hospital, no one knew what was wrong with me. And I'm like, you're a hospital. Like this is like what you do. Like you can't, like that was so weird to me. I never knew. And you hear stories like it's taken me years. I'm like, just go to the hospital, you know, but like apparently like there's more that they, you know, and they sent infectious disease, all these crazy disease people. No one could figure it out. Weirdly, my throat was open, but it hurt so much that my brain was telling me not to swallow. And so once I had pain medication in here, I could swallow fine. But it still didn't solve the problem of this pain and these blisters. Long story short, someone sent me to a dermatologist, which I didn't know did anything inside your mouth. And they said, oh, I read something in a textbook like 2 decades ago that I think you might have. And I had something similar. It's called pemphigus vulgaris, and it's a blistering disease. And it's an autoimmune. And usually people get it on their skin, and they have like they look like lepers. You know, there's blisters everywhere. And it doesn't technically kill you, but like eventually you're covered and like you want to die because you're just miserable. And in my case, since it was in my throat, like, and if my brain wasn't working correctly, like I wouldn't feel, I started losing weight. I lost like 30 pounds in like a month and a half, and I'm already pretty thin. Anyways, figured out, like got me on prednisone and cleared out my system for a little bit, found a specialist, and they gave me these infusions. And they said, hey, look, you're going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life. Every 3 or 4 years at the most, you know, like you'll be free. And then you have to come back and get these, you know, $20,000 cancer infusions, basically. And then, you know, but you can live and you'll live a fine life. And so when that happened, I started feeling better. I was like, well, and someone mentioned some like documentary on juicing. And I was like, I don't know. Like I always roll my eyes on all these things, you know, because like everyone like, oh, this will solve everything. Just do this. And I'm like, anyways, I watched it. I'm a sucker and I believe everything. I was like, oh yeah, if you eat like a ton of vegetables, like your body loves it. Like that's better than a hamburger. You know? And so I did. So for like 6 months now, maybe 8 months, every single day I have at least one tall glass of green juice, like with cucumbers and kale, you know, and I don't know what it's doing to my body, but it feels good. And I feel like I'm productive. And when I started feeling like more energy and I was like, well, I'll work on myself, you know, people kept saying yoga. And so I tried yoga, and I'm, you know, obviously addicted to that now, but I'm like, oh, great. Like now I got like the stuff I'm consuming, I'm working on physically, and yoga is very mentally too. So I'm working on my brain. People are like, hey, there's this boot camp class, you know, at the Y, go check it out. And, you know, you might like that. So every morning at 6 a.m., I either do a boot camp class or hot yoga in the morning. And so I have this nice balance of like weights and yoga and mental and spiritual and green juice, you know, like it's my whole, you know, people are saying, oh, you're a fitness guy. I'm like, no, like you don't understand. Like I didn't do any of this, just get sick and it changes everything, you know? And so, yeah, I think, yeah, I just like, you know, what I learned, and this is like, I didn't start a project, but then I realized that, but the new project for me is like the project of me. You know, like all the time we spend at a job, if you were to apply those hours towards yourself, like I'm thinking like how amazing you would be, you know, like you're reading more, you're physically fit, you're eating better. Like it's the same practice. And so I just like had to say, don't build anything, just use that time on yourself. And so, and it works, obviously, you know. And granted, like we have the freedom to be able to make these decisions. Like, oh, I have an epiphany. Let me go do it now because you don't have to worry about money. You know, it's different
Yeah.
if you're hustling and like you need, you know, but that's something that you can look forward to and work towards, having the freedom to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, when are you starting to blog about this?
Dude, I know the green juice. I was going to start a blog. The yoga. I want to start a blog. And and the latest thing. I mean, these are all latest things. But like 2 weeks ago, I was like, I just want to like the screens. Like we're just so addicted to the screens that I was like, I just kind of like want to do less screens. And that's what really like I enjoy waking up like 5-6 in the morning. But in the beginning, I'd wake up and I'd do work and I'd be in front of a screen, and that's what led me to hot yoga at 6 a.m. and the boot camps at 6 a.m. because like I can get up and be productive, but I'm physically, it's like good stuff. It's not sitting in front of a screen, and so the latest thing for me is getting away from screens. And so anytime I think like, oh, a blog or Instagram Instagram's perfect for yoga because they're all physical poses. Do you know how hard it is to do Instagram when you're talking about like budgeting? Like no one wants to see numbers in spreadsheets, but yoga poses, like, yeah. So I consume it when I'm on there, but I'm like, no, don't get sucked in. Don't build it because you'll be in front of screens, So that's my hindrance of like not wanting to get sucked back in, but it's possible I do at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's no rush because you're, financially independent and you can kind of, take it in stride and at a pace that works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I, just kind of, like I enjoy creating, but it's like, it's like, if I work is fun up until a point.
Yeah.
And then it's exhausting and it's like it hurts you more than it feels good. So what I try to do is like find that balance, like how much work per day, and it kind of changes throughout the year and the seasons.
Sure, yeah.
Like I tend to want to work less during the winter. I kind of want to hibernate. I want to sleep more. I don't want to see people. And then spring and summer comes and I kind of like working a little bit more and I like to like be around people.
Okay.
And so I like really just work to like kind of listen to like what my body, mind, and spirit need as like I go through the seasons, and just like kind of pay attention to that. So there's no pressure rush from me for you to start a blog about this.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seasons. Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it too, like during winter, everything fucking dies.
Yeah.
Like, everything goes into hibernation. Like, and I think the more in tune we are with nature, like the healthier we become, like physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Yeah. That's probably true.
And so like over time, as one of the reasons I wanted to achieve financial freedom was like, so I could design my ideal lifestyle. And you're totally at that point. I think you're just like, you kind of like me, you're an extremist and you went like extreme hardcore, let's build things, whatever, burnt yourself out. So you're like, had to go extreme on like building money. Right. And then at some point you'll kind of come back to like an equilibrium.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I feel like there's always something you're working on. And like you, right? Like the self-development, I don't know what it is. Like all the books, like I can't read other books unless there's something helpful for me in there. And I don't read a lot as much anyways. I fall asleep real fast. But like I always have a desire to like improve something or declutter something, like something that makes like life like better, and even like, I think that's why I got into volunteering because like, oh my gosh, like especially the places I volunteer, there's a lot of like people without homes or homeless. And like interacting with them for like 10 minutes, like all of my like problems that aren't problems, I'm like, oh my gosh, like why did I even care about that? It's like such an extreme, it's like extremism again, right? Like it's such an extreme, change there that, puts things in perspective for me too. And it's funny too. And this, I don't know what this is or what it means, but we'll do dinners, like at a church. It's all homeless people. And I walk in there, and like, especially my first time, I was blown away because they were all like chatting and drinking coffee. They were playing chess. It was like a community, but they were all playing and they all knew each other, and it was all like jovial. And it's not always, but it hit me that like their community, like they don't have a lot, right? They have nothing, but they have each other. And like some of those people have more friends and connections than a lot of people I know that sit at home and don't do anything. And they go to work and they come home and they don't have anything social, and that like really hit me like a blessing that they have that community and they know everyone. And it's like they all are in the same position. So it's not like there's not usually this crazy dynamic in like, in other lives. But yeah, it's just interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they also show like science is like the number one predictor of longevity is like the number of strong social connections that you have.
Oh gosh,
like,
yeah. I am coming to
yeah,
believe that very much. Yep.
yeah.
Mm.
Awesome. Well, as we kind of start to wind the show down, I like to ask every guest to share one tip, tool, or strategy for fitness and or health,
Yeah.
one for money and or business, and one for life. So
Uh,
what has Jay got
I
for
already gave
us?
you all my secrets.
Yeah.
Let me think. For the fitness one, I'll say before I did yoga and the workout stuff, someone I saw posted 100 push-ups a day challenge, and I was like,
Hmm.
oh man, that's like, yeah, that's like achievable. I mean, I could never do 100 in one spot, but that got me thinking, like, if like, because you have no time to go to the gym, you don't know how to work out, you don't have weights, but like everyone has a body, and so like the push-ups was a really easy way to like slowly introduced me into like wanting to be more physical and into fitness. So I started doing like 20 or 30 a day. And then I did the challenge. I think I lasted maybe 40 days of 100 a day. I do 10 or 20 here, then wait a little bit, and I like every time before I took a shower, got to do 10 push-ups. Anytime you walk into the kitchen, got to do 10. Like I made these little stupid little rules. So like force me to like keep remembering to do the push-ups. And I felt great. I don't know like how much it did for my body, but I felt better, and it led me to pushing myself into these other classes that I'm doing. So a challenge like 100 push-up challenge, I think, is good. Mentally, or the life one, I think the waking up earlier in the morning, or I guess I should say earlier than you normally do, because if you're not a morning person, you wake up at 9 or 10. But like that 1 hour difference, really for me, especially when I started having kids, and like when I tried waking up at 5 a.m., like it's all dark, and like it's like so peaceful and serene, and like it's like you time, like you could do anything you want, you could sit there and meditate, you can read, you can write, but like everyone's asleep, and like you have this time to yourself, especially when you're fast paced, right? Like a lot of people, it's hard for them to stop and to do anything for themselves, and so that's like one time, that for me really. And I first did it with, I just started blogging earlier and working. Sometimes I would read. Now I work out. But that hour when everyone's sleeping, like made a difference, at least for me. What
Yeah.
was the other thing? Money. Money. The net worth is always my number one thing, but we talked about that. I'm trying to think what else I do for that. I mean, here's just a silly little like thing. Like whenever I was saving or paying off debt, especially with debt, I just round up. So if I had like a credit card of like $320 debt, I'd round up to 400, like whatever the hundredth is. And that like with my mortgage, I did that too for a little bit. I just kept rounding up. So every time I paid, I was paying a little extra, and then it shortened the time and the interest by a lot. But then it got easy to then like, all right, well, let me up it another like 10 or $50 a month. But the rounding up and then with savings helps too. And that's like an easy thing that most people, if you can't round up to the hundredth, if it's like $32, you can round up to 40. Like most people aren't going to notice that difference.
Yeah.
And getting the company match if you have a 401k, that they're going to give you free money. Like it's a no-brainer to take the money. It's a no-brainer even if you take the money, cash it out, pay all the penalties. Like you're still going to be like 50% ahead. You know.
Yeah.
So that's a definite too. What were the other categories? Life.
We got
We
them.
got him. Okay, gosh.
We got them. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Those are good. But yeah, so for anyone listening, I think tracking your money is so important. Whether it's your expenses, your income, your net worth, like track, like if you've never tracked your money,
Yeah.
like start tracking it and it will turn your financial
Yeah.
situation around.
It'll be
Because you
scary.
can't
It'll be
improve.
scary the first time.
Oh,
You're not going to be happy with
God, I
yourself.
remember.
You won't be
Yeah.
happy.
In the beginning, it's so scary. But then, you know, the only way to build confidence with anything is through experience.
Yeah.
So like the more you start tracking your money, then eventually get confident. Then you get to a point where it's like, you know, I don't know if you still track your net worth, but
Yeah.
like,
I do.
like, it's not like you're checking your expenses and income every single day. Now you kind of like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
And you've like kind of built that like foundation
Yes.
that allows you to, you know, really live the life that you want to live.
Yeah. Well, and you like just knowing, like a lot of people, and they've told me, like when I used to do money coaching, they're like, I'm just too afraid to know exactly how much I'm in debt. Like they just don't want to know because they know it's going to be bad, and it sucks. And there's really no way around it. But you have to know, so then next month you can compare and see if you did better. And I think even if people saw that the increase their net worth or their debts going down, like that feeling is really good. But you have to start. You have to have that base, like you said. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like, but it can, because then, you know, for me, when I had the net worth and when I did it for the first time, like it was fine. But every time I went to go like to the store, like I just want to go shopping, and I put my credit card. I'm like, oh dang! Like I know it's like the number is, I can see it in my head. The numbers are going up in my net worth in my spreadsheet, you know, and it forced me to like pay, like double check before I bought something. And especially if you're blogging, like I blogged it to, you know, hundreds of thousands of people. So then I really was like self-conscious of spending because I know it's going to show up, you know. And there are times where I'm like, I don't care. Like people are going to give me shit. Like this is like, I want to buy this, you know. And then I'd have to explain myself in my thing, and people would say like, call me out on like, you call yourself a financial buyer, you know, like you dummy. But you know, so yeah, that when other people see what you're doing, like it helps motivate you, but that's like an extreme, right? Like most people don't share their finances with the world.
Yeah. Awesome. Best place to find you online is jmoney.biz. Yep.
Yep. That has like links to my blogs and my past projects and my social stuff. Yeah. And you can, anyone, yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I love meeting new people and happy to help if you're having, you know, issues with something, blogging or, you know, money or whatever.
And budgets are sexy on Twitter/X if they're wanting to use social media to get to you.
Yeah,
right?
that's my favorite platform. Yeah. Now, as I said, I'm trying not to look, so sometimes it might take me a day or two, which was crazy, you know, years ago. Like if I'm not checking every hour, like something's wrong. Yeah. Now it's like, oh, I haven't checked in a couple of days. Oh my gosh, I need to go see what's happening. So.
Any last words of wisdom or anything else you want to chat about or requests of the audience before we land this plane?
Oh no, I just think I guess the one thing is just like figure out like what you want out of life, you know, like really think about it and then just try and implement something every day that, like, you know, a little piece of that, if it brings you closer to it, or, you know, like just something like you can enjoy life every day and not have to wait until like this big thing happens. You know, I think that's important, especially with, you know, I don't know, I hate to leave it on death but I think about death a lot, and I'm like, if I'm going to die tomorrow, I want like some happiness today. Right. And we don't know whether you're rich or poor, like when you're dying, you know? And so like that to me is like a huge wake up call to try and live, you know, as best as you can, you know, each day, regardless of your situation.
I love it. Jay, thanks so much for coming on the show.
All right, man. Don't die. Okay.
Don't die anybody.
Don't die anybody.
Or at least have some fun before you die.
There you have fun, then die. Yep.